Okay, then let's start. Hi, everyone. This is a live session. So at the end of this session, we'll have 5 minutes of questions or Q&A and comments if you have. So don't forget to add your questions and comments in the section on the platform. And let's start. So welcome to my presentation today. And I'm going to be speaking about contextual voice experiences, or specifically about context in voice. Let me introduce myself. I'm Hassan. I'm a senior voice AI experience architect and Vovo agency in Germany. I have been into working in voice field for the last 4 years, specifically in custom voice assistants and voice experiences. Vovo agency, I would say, is the collective of experts or voice experts in Germany. We have offices in Munich, that's the headquarters. And we also have offices in Berlin, Bonn, and 2 offices also in Switzerland. So I would like to talk to you today about context. And before I start, I would like to share with you this quote from JCR, or Joseph, by the way. He was a computer scientist, and he did also so many books and even essays mainly about computers or machines, or as he actually says, computing machines and humans or human brains. In this one, what we see is more of kind of broadcasting into the future, trying to see how the relationship between a computing machine or a computer and human beings could be. So that relationship, as he actually describes it, it's more of a partnership. So it's more that the human brain can actually go beyond and more in design thinking or design processing, or even information processing and even data processing in many new ways that hasn't been done before with the assist with these machines. So what he actually talks about in the man-computer symbiosis is some sort of a new relationship between the two. And that relationship, I think, kind of get us to this point in right now to actually question and kind of think about how we would like to have computers in our lives. Because nowadays, what we have is voice assistants, which are kind of part of our lives and everyday lives. I mean, voice assistants are everywhere. You can see them in either as an object, as in smart speakers in your home, or even on the go with your super smart smartphones, right? But nonetheless, this relationship didn't really evolve that much because we still have some recognition problems, speech recognition, some, I would say, unmatched expectations, for certain experiences or in voice in particular. And one evidence of this is this video here. I'm not sure if you can hear the voice, but I think you know about it. You can have it also. I can share the comments, share the link in the comments. So what you see here is a kind of small baby, talking to Alexa, the device, asking it to that I need daddy, right? Actually, Alexa heard it right and transcribed it right, and everything is okay. And what happened is it has been identified as a shopping item, right? So this is why it added to the shopping cart. So if you technically see what happened behind that, you will think nothing really wrong happened because the transcription SR and you kind of understood the intent in a good way, or let's say correct. But of course, it doesn't make sense. And that sense making is still a problem. Although, as you can see, we had Alexa on the market for the last 7 years, right? And the problem is not just recognition. The problem is also context. By context here, I think most people understand that context is data, mainly is the previous utterances or the conversation history that you have in your voice experience. So you collect as many utterances from what actually people said. When you talk to them, you kind of memorize what they said before, so you can kind of keep the context. This is mainly it nowadays. Some other assistants and systems, they use even information about the user profile, like the name, the age, and so on. And even if you used the service or the assistant for the first time, or you're coming back, other information or data like location and time helps, keeping the context in place, keeping the context kind of sustained and maintained, and you can actually do more and be smarter. So and so on and so forth. But the problem is context is not just data. What's still missing till today is the common sense part, meaning that actually a system makes sense of certain relationships that is not just managed by the NLP or just the NLU by itself. These relationships could be, in that example that I showed you before, would be daddy, like what is daddy? Yeah? Who is daddy? What does it represent to the person talking in the first place, right? So things like common sense, or let me say the physical environmental model, understanding what's happening behind and what's happening around the experience is really important. So when we look at the touch points or the different modalities that people are actually using to access your voice assistant, you'll find actually it affects the context really heavily. So if we go for the first type, the typing, where people can actually just type and chat with a voice assistant, like with a conversational, then in this case, because maybe you cannot talk to it, the context there can be really be smart, because users, they see the whole conversation, so they can manage themselves. They don't really need to kind of be open about which inquiries that they need to say or they need to be aware of. So the conversation there is, it's laid down there. The options also are laid down there. So the interaction there is really limited. So when an error might happen, it's easy for the users to actually recover from it. Tapping, when you go to tapping, when you just can see a screen, but you can not really type on it, but maybe you speak to it more. So you have an option to actually just tap certain options. So you can use the graphical user interface there. So that means you can somehow also make use of the information that you know about the user, right? Because you know where they are tapping, where they're going, and so on. But in speaking, so you just like speak to the assistant, it's really hard to anticipate the different points where they are, who they are, except for if you know their voice and they have a voice ID. But navigating the voice space is like walking blindly in a very huge space, right? Because you don't really track where they go. So these modalities affects, of course, then how we actually what we understand about the users, right? So to make it more convenient for us, we need to do some sort of contextual inquiry, meaning in your design process or in the beginning of trying to understand which use cases that you have. Of course, you start by doing this in most of the conversational design process or even voice design process. You do a use case mapping. So you try to figure out what actually the people need or the users need, right? So you have different cases where you try to say, okay, this is the end goal, and this is what they're trying to achieve at different points using your platform, your experience, or maybe your voice skill. And you lay down the constraints, try to have different relationships between the journey, where it starts or where it ends, and so on. And this is still important, of course, to understand who and how you are designing for other people. Another important thing that I think also very important in designing for voice experiences is the relationship mapping. It's not just about one user, right, using your experience, but more of understanding the bigger picture, understanding who that user is and how it relates, or how it relates to other users there. So if we, back again to the baby example, if we have some sort of understanding that this device is inside home, and home has different users, and these users could be, it might be a small kid or parents and so on, understanding that could actually help to come up with some kind of a common sense model, right, that we can actually integrate into our system. So these also detailed intentions of the different users or different people behind it is really important. So we need to understand their motivations, why they talk the way they talk, what are the common intents or the common intentions that they have, right? Another aspect, I think, for the contextual inquiry is the physical model. So understanding the actual space where this device is used, because we always say at home, but we don't really pay much attention where at home that device could be. I mean, it could be, of course, in the kitchen, could be in the living room, could be in the bedroom, but still, I mean, where in the bedroom it is, or where in the living room it is. This is really important to understand, again, the relationship between the different objects. So one case would be what I think lately that has been addressed so much, that some people would put the smart speaker just near the TV, right? This wasn't really accounted for before, so people would actually had problems with the false wake-up word, like the smart speaker actually, or Alexa, for example, would actually wake up because of the noise from the TV, right? So if in the first place we actually understood the relationship between these objects and trying to make sense of the relationships between where people actually put the things and use them, that will help us also in this contextual inquiry. At the end of the day, I think it's not just about having these relationships, I mean, in mind and in design process, right? Because what you are trying to achieve here, maybe if I'm speak from a design perspective, what we're trying to achieve here is a kind of a unique experience, right? And to do that, you try to understand the systems, you're trying to understand the relationship between different things. But what you're trying to do at the end is build a system, as you can see in this quote, that is built for many users, right? So to do that, you need to abstract. You need to actually come up with just general rules that can fit maybe many users. But then comes the problem that, well, if you do that, because of that abstraction, you will actually go to the place where your system or voice experience doesn't actually fit everyone, right? Like the case we seen in the beginning. So contextual information, of course, is essential to have a good voice experience. So you need to know as much as you can about the actual real users that are actually using the device, and for that you need a lot of work on understanding the common sense, getting input and data and maybe sensor data into the voice experience to actually make it smarter and better. So the second point I would like to go for conclusion for is that's not just, of course, from a design perspective, but I think from even machine learning and experts and even data scientists, that they need to actually work more even on other components than just the usual one in LP, but also going for components that can actually incorporate common sense. And that common sense is really, really important for the whole voice experience. So at the end of the day, I mean, having that understanding of what's going around in the environment or going around the smart speaker or even the voice assistant is really, really important because it augments the voice assistant ability to actually be smart and have contextual information delivered to the users at the end. Yeah, I think that was it. I'm kind of 1 minute early for the time, but if you have any questions, please write them in the comments. I'm gonna try to have a look now. But nonetheless, visit us on the website. Also, if you want to talk to me, I have the email there and also have the LinkedIn. Yeah, that's about it. So let me have a look if you have any comments or questions. Okay, so I have a question here. The first one is, do you think users are likely to provide such contextual data, like the place in the home, who can use them and what relations they have? Well, it's too early, of course, to say, well, of course they will deliver these data or this information. I mean, because of the privacy reasons, that's for sure. But I think there is no harm in actually asking them. I'm not sure if when we will arrive to the point where people actually would just be happy to give away these info. But I mean, trading the data, your data for convenience, kind of works most of the time. So I think if they understand the magnitude and also the reason and why you as a voice assistant provider or system provider actually need these data, then that would be very, very helpful for them, and hopefully will actually help them to say, yes, I think I would like to share some of my information. I mean, given the fact that now you have cameras in some devices, right? You have some devices with a camera, not just with a microphone, that gives you actually more access to more information. And I think till today, we didn't really utilize the camera as we should. I mean, I expect in the future that we'll have more sensors of some sort, like either it's a depth camera or other infrared cameras. I mean, we have so many sensors on other devices, but it's not really yet acceptable to have them in a smart speaker. I mean, I'm not talking about the price range, but it's more that people actually allow that kind of thing to be in their homes. But I do expect a future with that, because you can use a lot of information out there, where it's like gaze, for example, detection, or even counting how many people are there and talking to you and so on, and addressing them. But I do believe in a future where this will be very, very common and normal. Yeah. Okay, do we have other questions, or that's all? Okay. Yeah, someone's asking for the slides. Of course, I mean, I can send them. Just send me your email and we can have that. Okay, then I think that's it. So I hope we keep talking somewhere. So please send an email or just on LinkedIn, connect to me on LinkedIn. And yeah, please have fun. I have to also mention that this is part of my research in my PhD about the context. But if you have any interest in that, please contact me, and have a good day. Thank you all.